everybody, and welcome. I'm Laura Rogers, and this is SharePoint Power Hour, going on a few years now. This is a live show, Wednesdays at 11 Central, about stuff in SharePoint and Office 365. I'm not a dev or an admin. This is all just sort of all the topics in between for people that are not super technical, but maybe power users. And we just go into all kinds of various topics. So the last 3 weeks or so, I started getting in the habit of sending out the newsletter and just putting some things for people to vote on for the topic. And we also have this Slack channel where we all chat live during the show, which is the fun thing about having a live show. It's just have a live chat going on where we discuss whatever the topic is and ask questions. And today's topic you all voted on was the ability to do a navigation in a Power App using PowerApps components. And a couple of the other things I put out there to vote on were Microsoft Teams admin and this new thing called Access Reviews in Azure, which I think are perfectly cool other topics, but you all voted on this one way over the other ones. So let me go ahead and share my screen here and talk about this concept. So I'll show you an example of what it looks like, sort of the end result. It's pretty bare bones, and I didn't want to make it super fancy and spend a lot of time just making it, giving it a whole bunch of visuals and making it look slick. I wanted to really show you the functionality of how to get it to work first, and then maybe we'll be able to go in and do a couple of tweaks and add some fanciness to it. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. And I took an app that I already have, and let me see, and I just kind of crammed this concept into it. So it's pretty messy. A couple of customer projects that I've done lately, I've been doing this, that as the best practice when I'm creating the navigation, just as I'm creating the app. But this was a demo app that I had that I'll show you what it looks like, and then I'll just go into just a plain blank app and we can build it there, and that way you'll be able to see kind of all the pieces, parts. It'll probably take the full hour. It might even go over because it's a good bit of just settings and little things here and there to understand. It's kind of complicated. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and explain what this concept is first. So this is my little customers and projects app. So this concept is this having navigation that goes across all the screens that you can sort of centrally manage and have it be uniform, and also have it be clickable. So I clicked on projects, clicked on social, and have it be clickable to take you across to the different parts of your app, and you can stick this component on all the different screens in your app. So I know it's pretty ugly, but there are a couple of things going on. The first thing is it lights up and shows a different color dynamically according to the current screen you're on. And it also has the navigation where it clicks and takes you to that page. So it knows what you're clicking on, and then it's doing an action. It's taking you to a page, and then it's got some conditional formatting on this gallery itself that knows what page you're currently on, so that it can show a different color. So once you understand all those fundamentals, then you can start playing around with putting icons in it and making it not have this big ugly yellow thing, but do maybe your own thing. Maybe just have the text be bold or look different in some other way when you're on that particular screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new one. I take this over here and just do a brand new one, so that it's ugly when we do a brand new one, but it's more simple. So it's kind of breaks it down so you don't get overwhelmed with kind of anything else going on in there. So this is advanced PowerApps. This is not going to be something for if you've never seen PowerApps before. And I'm just creating a new one real quick. Of course, I've got a million tabs going on. Dun, dun, dun. This was something I was looking at with responsive layouts in Canvas apps. Oh my gosh, of course my PowerApps breaks right when I get started. Start over, click create. There. Test 828. All right, so what we're going to do is the first thing that we're going to do once we spin this up is that components is still sort of a test feature. It hasn't officially rolled out yet. So components is not going to automatically be there for us to see in our Power App. I might just have to open an existing just blank Power App that I don't know why it's all of a sudden being weird. Let me see real quick. Yeah, I've never seen it just ask me to authenticate over and over again, but I do have another just blank Power App that I can play around with in here. I did one when we first, when the concept of components first came out, I did a power hour on just introducing components. So I think I did that in my other tenant though. I'm sorry, I don't know why PowerApps just, like I said, it's live on the fly, but usually PowerApps is not going to just completely not work. And now I have to sign in. Awesome. Gotta love live demos. So, but I have the Power App built that has it all functioning. I just thought it might be a little too complicated, and just because the settings are so everywhere, to try and show you everything in the existing Power App. So I was hoping to just create a new blank one. This is a different tenant. So let me see if it'll let me create a new blank one over here. Good grief, right? Oh, so you've been dealing with that too. Okay, so there's my new Power App. So we'll have a few different screens. I don't know why I'm duplicating something that doesn't have anything on it. But we'll have a few different screens, and we'll have a component, and we have to turn on the ability to have components. So we have to go into the advanced settings and component, we have to turn that on. So that has to be turned on for us to be able to see all this different stuff that we're doing in here. All right, so then when we do that, we have this tab called Components. And what we're going to do is add a new component, and we'll call this CMP Top Nav. And then in the component, we'll add a gallery. And I'll just make it, the gallery's way over here. I'll make it a blank horizontal gallery. And then, no, I don't need an existing data source. I'll just kind of move it to the top. This blank space at the bottom doesn't really affect anything. It doesn't really matter, so I don't need to make it perfect. But whatever size I put it in here, that's the size that's going to show up at the top of all those other screens. All right, so I've got my blank component, and then I'm just going to put a label inside it. Stop asking me to select a data source. So I inserted a label in my component, and so each one of these is going to be sort of what my navigation text. That's going to be where the navigation text is. So I can make it bigger, smaller, bold, that kind of thing. And then I need to have what my items are going to be in my gallery. So let me name stuff correctly first. Gal top nav and my nav text. Then my component itself needs to have some inputs. So that's where I get to this sort of some slides that I put together explaining what some of these concepts are before I just dive into throwing stuff together. And you all, and the fun thing about, having this be live is that we can chat and have a conversation throughout, and you can ask questions, and it's all very interactive. Okay, so you can see my slide, right? Hopefully. Okay, we have a collection that we're doing when the app starts. So in the on start of the app, we're doing a collection, and this is what we want to be in the navigation. So then we're creating a name, which is the word we want to show in the navigation for, the customers, the projects, whatever it is. The screen text is the name of the screen you want it to navigate for, say, customers, whatever it is. And then the screen is the name of the screen. Now this is kind of confusing. This is the most confusing part about it. I initially had tried to have just one screen field in here and have it be the screen, the actual name of the screen, and text with quotes around it. But it didn't function the way you'd kind of want it to, and the whole component became really slow and became very cumbersome. And once I kind of split it apart and made it into two different ones, it worked. It functioned a lot better, because when we are navigating, when we click something and we want it to navigate us and take us to a page, that navigate action that we're doing needs to have the actual screen name that's not it's not text. It doesn't have quote around it. It's just the name of the screen, because it needs to be able to associate that with the actual names of screens in the app and take us there. It won't take us to something that is just a piece of text, right? So that is the most confusing part. One of the things I wanted to lay out for you. So it's screen text and screen are the exact same thing. So like customers, SCR customers, that's in quotes, and then just next one is SCR customers. Okay. The inputs, now when we're in the component, this is sort of the next step of what we're about to do in that navigation component I just created. And these are the inputs. They're going to create some different inputs and outputs for the component. With me so far? Can y'all verify that you can see my screen? You're following along. Just want to make sure. You all are very much more quiet today than usual. So sometimes I'm just talking and going along, and I don't realize that the app crashed or no one sees my screen. So there's also a delay too when I talk and when I can see your comments. Okay, so these are the two inputs that I'm putting in my component. I have input page, and it also lets you put an actual value in these inputs and outputs, but this one is empty. Input page is, and I also need to say what type those are too. I'll have to add that. And an input table is an actual table. An input page is just text, and an input table is a table. And so when we get to that screen, you'll see those. So the table it's going to be showing that collection that I collect, showing all the navigation, but that table needs to put itself in the component. And what I had initially done and it lets you do this, there's no way to necessarily know that it's not a best practice or that it's not what you're supposed to do, was I had put the collection directly in the gallery inside of the component. And turns out that was what was causing my whole app to be slow. And by every time I clicked on the component screen to go back and forth, it would take like 5 minutes, because you're not supposed to just have a gallery, something inside of a component refer to data from your app. So that's why I'm passing it in as an actual table parameter into the component. And then my outputs are my gal top nav, which is my gallery. In the component, whatever I select, the text of whatever thing I'm clicking on, because I need to pass that out to the app. So it's kind of weird because the component is like a completely separate entity. So that's the thing about components, is the component is not just, it doesn't just know about your data and know about the fields in your app or values here and there. Like everything else in your app, you can just refer to each other just anytime you want. Well, component's a completely separate entity. So anytime you want to get data from anywhere in your app or get information from any other control anywhere, you have to create these parameters to pass in input and output to tell it exactly what to get from the rest of the app and to send out from the rest of the app. All right. Stacy said my voice is off from the video. That's awesome. That usually happens when it's like a slow connection or something. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try and close a couple of other things that could potentially be slowing it down. I don't know. Close OneDrive. I don't think it's doing anything, but that's really annoying if you all are seeing my voice all separated from my picture. Okay. Disabling a couple of things. Okay, so that makes sense so far. It's a very advanced topic. All right. Oops. So we've got in the component, did I go over so then the outputs. So our page output is whatever selected. Then we have this navigate trigger. So the first time I demonstrated components to you all and I was introducing you to this concept of components, I had never done anything with components before. I'd never used them. We were just kind of poking around and trying stuff. And I could get it to show potentially some navigation, but there wasn't any way to make it trigger and do something and do an action when you click something, when you click a component. Component doesn't necessarily, it doesn't just have an on select like everything else. So the method that we're using to trigger an action to happen, to trigger us navigating to another page, is that we're putting an extra little, just a toggle switch on every screen in the app. And when a toggle switch has an on change, that will actually trigger an action. So that's a sort of a little just advanced tip in PowerApps, is that if you have something that won't trigger an action, a toggle button on change will trigger it. So if you change it via a variable like programmatically, that change will trigger whatever action you define in the on change property. Okay, so that's what this navigate trigger is that we're putting as an output. And we're putting as a value in here, we're putting this variable nav temp, and I just called it temp because it's just temporarily toggling it on and then back off so that it triggers for us to navigate. And it's toggling it back off just in case we go back to the screen and we need to do it again. Terry says, can I recommend Power Hour and SharePoint Power BI? I think I did one. Didn't I do a Power BI? It's been a while, maybe a year, but I have definitely done a Power BI Power Hour. And I think I even did SSRS ones a long time ago. Okay, in the components, this is that component we just created. So we're in the little component interface. I'm putting a horizontal gallery in there, put a label. You saw me do that. Now, another thing we can do, which we might do towards the end if we have time, is put something cute like a little icon for each thing we're navigating to. And then this is the part right here, this template fill. This is the part that's showing it a different color if we are on that screen, so that whatever screen we're on, like, you know how I showed you it was yellow, it lights up yellow. So this is kind of, this RGBA is like just sort of a faded white that I'm using. So instead of just putting solid white, it's like a faded because it's got the 0.8. So if the component top nav input page equals this, basically this screen that I'm on, then it shows as yellow, otherwise it's white. So that's the template fill property on the gallery. Okay, so then when you insert the component on the screen, we'll go over these in a second. So let's go, I'll go back and go into some of these settings. So these custom properties, these are like parameters that I was telling you about. So I'm going to go to my create a new custom property, and I'll call it input page. And then that's input, and then this is important, it has to be text. And then I'll do another one, that's the input table. And that one is input, and it is a table. See, there are a lot of different types of input. I did try using, for the screen, I did try using the screen one in here, and when it was on a screen instead of text, that's one of the things that made the whole thing really slow. So when I got rid of that, it made everything much smoother and faster. So you're probably sitting there wondering, if you've done this before, why I didn't use screen, but that just didn't work out. I could have potentially been doing something wrong, but text seemed to make this thing much faster than trying to pass the actual screen. So I've got two input properties, and I'll do output. And that's text. And then, oops, did I make it the wrong type? Yeah. It's supposed to be output text. See, it puts a little separate section there. And then this one is navigate trigger. Oops. And that is also output. Okay, now I've got all my inputs and outputs set up. Now this is the part that's kind of hidden, that's important that to go to also. So when I go to the Advanced tab, that's where I can set up the defaults for what needs to be in these, like what information needs to be in these little parameters that properties that I just set up. I keep calling them parameters, that's kind of what they are. So over here and I put this in the slide, I put that this is empty, this input page. And then for table, you don't need all this sample stuff that it's going to give you by default. You can do, and this is what I had in the slide, I'll go ahead and just go to table up here. Input table. This is going to be the same, this is the structure of that collection that I'm doing at the beginning of the app on start. All right, and then, and I don't think I put that in here yet. Okay, and then the name page output is going to be gal top nav. That's my gallery over here. Dot selected dot screen, and it's not resolving it yet. Let me just flip back and then back over and then see if it. Yeah, so it kind of, let's see. No, it still thinks it's that fake. This is kind of funky. I found that kind of going back and forth, and once I set up some of the other stuff in the screens, some of this actually works a little better. And when I was doing this, I was just kind of going back and forth, and setting this multiple times. I'll just have to go back to this one. All right, and the nav trigger is going to be that variable, which I haven't created yet, so it'll probably not like that either. Yeah, so I haven't created this variable. I'll do that one later too, because that variable is going to come from the app. So it's coming from the app into the component, and that nav trigger is going to have the value of that variable. Okay. Now, also, so this still has all this fake data in it because I haven't done any collecting yet. So for my app, I'm going to do my collect. So on start, and then clear collect. Now I'm just pasting this from my other app, but we want to kind of define what the screens are. So these screens, I'll give them better names. So I'll just say like SCR1, just super simple. SCR2, SCR George. There, just to make it different so that you don't think that they have to have numbers on them. So I've got 1, 2, and George. So this is going to be, I'll just stick something on this page that says screen 1. Just so when we navigate around, we can tell. We can visually see where we are. There. Okay, so then we need to have, so we've got some nice screens. So they're going to be 1, 2, and George. And then we're going to, oh yeah, somebody was asking, can PowerApps be considered as a replacement for Nintex forms? No, not necessarily. Nintex forms is perfectly viable and active product. It's not going anywhere, and it is, unless you, unless you just don't want something that's, I don't know, maybe Nintex is more expensive than PowerApps, but that's the only, there's no reason to drop Nintex and go for PowerApps. Nintex has probably got an easier user interface and doesn't have a lot of the crazy complexity with some of the stuff that PowerApps has. I did a whole, wrote a blog post the other day called Stop Using InfoPath. And I put a link to the whole playlist of me comparing all the form products like 4 years ago. And Nintex was one of them, but I was just going through kind of the interface. Now, of course, it's changed by now, but just the concept of looking at all the different form products. That was before PowerApps even existed. So, yeah. So go read my Stop Using InfoPath blog post. Okay. So my screens, screen 1, 2, and George. So I need to go do my on start and make that kind of screen in 1, 2. Notice I've got quotes around one and not quotes around the other. Okay, and now they all kind of, now that I finished typing, they all kind of resolved and are okay. So I'll go ahead and, I'll go ahead and run this, run my on start. And so now I can see, when I go view my collections, I can see I have this collection now of the name, the screen, and the screen's text. And then let's go back to the components. Let's see if it likes me any better now. Let's see. Page output was Galtop Nav. No, it still doesn't. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about that right this second. Okay, we'll just have to come back to that because it does need to resolve what's in there. Okay, so that's my input table. Oh, and then for my items, oh, see, that's what I didn't do. I didn't do the items. my items property, and I'm going to change this items property. You'll see you'll see what I'm doing when I start putting the component in all the different places in the app. So parent.input table. And then let's see, what's it doing? So instead of the text saying sample heading like it did by default, now I'm going to say name, and that's going to be the name that's going to show from the navigation. So what color do I want? I'm going to make that have at least be a color, so just to make sure. Now there's nothing in there right now, but I don't want that to be white or invisible. I want to be able to see it. And then I also need to do that template fill. The template fill is also something that I showed you in these slides. If the component top nav, that's this component, .input page is equal to whatever screen you're on, that's why it's going to show it yellow, otherwise it's going to show it white. Now let's go back to the screens. And then I've got another slide. So I'm going to insert the component on the screens. And then, so I'm also going to insert a toggle control on each screen. You can see I kind of threw this together right before we started. The toggle control is the part that is going to make it actually navigate and do that action. So the input page is going to be a property. When I insert my component on all these different screens, these are going to be properties. All these things that I created as parameters that I created in the component, those are all properties that I can set, that I can put a value in when I put the component in my app. So this is what we're defining when we insert the component on all these different screens. We can just really insert it on one and then copy and paste it to the other ones. And then we'll insert a toggle. I just like to call it toggle nav trigger. And on change, that's where it's going to navigate. So we'll put all that together now too. Okay, so I will go, so I'm on my screen 1 and I go to my insert tab and just choose components. I've only got one component. So I put it on here and I don't see anything in it yet. And it automatically, for some reason, puts it at the bottom. So you might want to be aware of that. You might, if you have a whole bunch of controls on that screen, you might want to note to bring it all the way to the front so that you can see it. And I'll just kind of go like that. Also, let's go to my component and I'll put a fill color on it, just the whole thing, so that I can see what's going on. Oh, let me just go here and go to my fill. There. So now I can visually see it. So now I can see that too. So, and we can talk about the width too. So the width of this gallery can be parent.width. So maybe that, yeah, so that stretches it across. Okay. Do I have, what else do I need? And I need to put all the properties over here for what data it's going to show. So for my input table, this is where I'm not going to put that little just sort of empty placeholder. Let me go up here. I'm going to put my collection. Ta-da, look at that. Okay. So lease, that's a good way, it's an interesting way of putting it, a run option for collections. Are you saying just to generate the collection or actually to make it trigger and make it do something when you click on something? Are you talking about what I did with the OnStart? All right, we'll see. Okay, the input table is that collection, and go back over to my component, and I need to have an extra toggle. Now I'm going to insert a toggle button and we're going to hide it. We don't need to see this. Oops, I don't need to put it like right on top of my component, but this is something that we're going to have on every screen that we're just going to hide. It's just going to have a visible is false. So I'll call it TGL nav trigger. Oops, TGL, not TBL. Okay, and then it is going to have, where's some of my settings on this thing? The on change, and I put this in one of the slides too. On change is the main thing that we need to focus on. So it's going to navigate to, let's see, it's my component top nav 1. So this part where you're telling it which component to look at. Now, every time I insert my component on all these different screens, this is actually its own control. So the navigate on each different screen needs to be talking to that particular component on that screen. So this is CMP top nav _1. So I'm just going to make these so they have names that match. So I'm just going to put an _1 after that one too, just for some symmetry there. Okay, and then my defaults for my toggle is going to be CMP top nav trigger. The nav trigger is the thing that where we're sending it and telling it to go off and on, right? And then what we can really do is just take this whole toggle and just hide it. So just go visible false. All right, so that's screen 1. And then I need to take this, and first I want to see if it works, see if I got everything in place. I don't think I have everything in place yet. So let me go back to the component. I have to go do a couple of these things. Yeah, see the nav trigger is not set up yet, so that's not going to actually do anything. So let's see, top nav dot selected dot, there it is, screen text. See, I knew it would appear. And now that let's see, I'm not defining my variable nav temp anywhere yet. Am I? Let me see. No, I don't. Okay. So that's another thing that I need to define, because when I click this, I want it to toggle it off and then back on. Oh, where did I do that? Let me see. I've got, see, that thing about this that's so tricky is it's just got settings everywhere. And that there is a action somewhere that I have where it's turning it off and then back on in my other one, and I have to go find it. On select. Yeah, I think that's what I did. Yeah, okay. Over in my component, that's where I have to do the on select. So here in my component, when they click on, do I want it just when they click on the word on the label, or do I want to make this on select be for just when they click anywhere in this whole, each entire item? So I think I'll just do the on select just for the whole gallery. So as long as this is just has to do with gallery. So as long as this label has its on select as, see, select parent, which is the default every time you put stuff in a gallery, then you're doing the on select for just the whole gallery, which sounds weird, but it knows which specific item you're clicking on, and it runs on select for that item. So when I click on something, it's going to set that variable var nav temp to true and then set it to false. So that's where that's what it's going to trigger the on change of that little toggle. Okay. Ah, look, it went to screen 2. Ah, all done. What do y'all think? Okay, so now I haven't put the component and the toggle on the second page yet, so I need to copy those. So, you know, if you're kind of wondering, well, why would I want to do all this as opposed to just putting a gallery on each screen? Why would I want to go to all this trouble? Well, then you have just one central place where you can manage it in one central place where you can make changes to visually the way the gallery works. So I know even if you had a separate gallery on each screen, you could do the thing with the collection to define what's in the collection in a central place. But this one gives you the ability to define what that whole gallery looks like just from a central place by going into the component and doing that. Like I want to center those words. And I also want to make sure that that all these little references, I want to make sure that all these little references are pointing to the right. See this toggle? Yeah, so component top nav _2 nav trigger, that's important. And yeah, so they are pointing to the right component. So that's the one with the _3. That's why I did the _1 under this toggle, just so they would all line up and match up. So let's see if I go 1, 2, 3. So yeah, it works. I'm navigating between screens, but the thing is not lighting up. The color is not changing. So something's still wrong with that part. So let's go look again at the color of, and that was my template fill. If the component top nav dot input page equals this item dot screen text yellow, otherwise, let's see. Page, input page. No, I don't need the input page. Let's see. Top nav dot input page. I need to be sending it the input page though. So let me see when I go to here. Oh yeah, so my input page is empty. Input page is, and this is one of those things that exists for all apps, this whole active screen thing. So anytime you want to know what the current screen is that the person is on in your app, this active screen dot and all this information about it dot other things is all available. See, name, background, image, blah, 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 is all available to use just anywhere in formulas. Okay, so now that I've got the input page of whatever screen I'm on, sending it to the component, now it functions. So I need to do that on these other ones too. So I could just go, and I should have done that on this first one before I copied it and pasted it to the other, all the other pages. But I'll just copy this one. Since it's just one little change, I'll go just paste it to the other one. So that's the trick, is you just get one on one page working right, and then you can just copy and paste it to all the other screens, and then there's not really anything else you need to go do separately on all the screens. Okay, now let's try it again. 1, 2, George. So now it works. Now let's try sticking an image in it, making it a little slicker, making it look a little nicer. So like this label, I can let's see, maybe center that, and then put an image. So to do an image, then I'd have to have images. So I can go upload. I'll just go to my media, go upload some stuff. I think I've got some PowerApps, just little buttons I've created that look kind of nice. I'm just gonna pick a few random ones. Certificate, city, white, and gift. Okay, and I'm just going to randomly assign these to my items in here. So I will go to that's going to be part of my collection now. So now in my collection, I'm going to put the name of the image in here. And that one with a certificate. It actually resolves it, which is interesting. City white. Oh, what was the other one? Gift. There we go. Let me go double check. Yeah, certificate, city white, gift. Okay, so then when I do my collection, I'm going to also define what image goes with each of these navigational components, what I want to see along with it. So let me go ahead and run that. So I'll have all that in my app. Now it's not showing in visually in this navigation yet because I need to go add that to the component. So in my gallery, I need to go insert just an image control. Kind of make it a little smaller and move it to the top like that. Kind of, yeah. So we have to kind of line these up so that the image doesn't cover the text and stuff like that. So then instead of picking a specific image, that's where I'm going to tell it to use the image that's part of the collection. So to know that though, let me see. My label, oh, it's going to be this item. Dot. Yeah, it just doesn't know that I have an image yet because I haven't defined that in the properties of the right here in the structure of what the table is. So I definitely would help if I would have done that is, you know, when I was first creating this collection, so I wouldn't have to go shim it in there later. Just put empty quotes there. All right, now what happens? Now I broke it. Okay, let's see. My component. So when I changed that little, see when I changed this thing in the component, it reset all these. So I had my input tables at showing my collection of my top nav. And I put that in this input table property when I first put that component on this screen. But then when I went and changed what's in the input table or in the gallery inside of the component, then that like reset everything. So definitely try, no, not like I'm doing, and try and think through it all when you're first setting up the component and putting it on all the screens. That way you don't have to go back and shimmy stuff in here. So input table. Now, why isn't my image showing? Let's see. Let me see. Now I put little quotes around the image when I inserted it in there. Now this is one of those things, you know, like I always do towards the end of Power Hour, is I kind of add something in, throw something in that I didn't necessarily plan. So I hadn't tried this one yet. So this is the all the other stuff I had all set up. I had my slides and everything, but the sticking the image in there is the thing that I did not think through. Okay, let me see if I do. What happens if I do certificate? Oh, maybe I need to, you know what? I need to pass that in because it has no idea. Remember, the component's a completely separate thing in my app, so it has no idea what images I've put in the media thing, in the media section in my app. I have to send it that information. So it's just another one of those little inputs and outputs. That's one of those. Yeah, I think I might need to run the app start again, but it might be because I don't have that in this component, doesn't know that. Let's go look. Let me see. Run on start. Yeah, I could have sworn I did that. Let me go look at my collection. So I don't know if I can't see these because it's in the collection. You know what, a good way of testing that is to just stick a gallery just anywhere in my app, so I can just make sure that the collection is working first and then troubleshoot why it's not working inside of the component. So gallery's way over here. I'm not sure why. It's got kind of relegated all the way over there. And then I will do my, yeah, so my collection is, yeah, it's working. So it has all the pictures in it. So I just stuck a gallery, you know, just on a random page, and it does work. So this item.img, that does work. I think I need to pass that information to the component though. just like I'm passing all the other ones. Let me see. Or it's the fact that this is in quotes. I'm not sure. So see the name, screen text. So I'm not really passing like just this text, this name here. I'm passing the name of the page so that it will show me, so that it will know to light up the right thing. But let me see, my input table. Yeah. Because I don't really need to have the image in the component. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether to try and put it as, is it the color of the image? Well, the image is white and it is on top of this. So it should be showing, let me go ahead and change this template fill so it's not so white, so it's more faded there. Oh wait, let me see. Oh, image. There we go. That's what I didn't do. Look at that. So in the component's properties, I have to go add that in because it had just sort of a little blank. See, this all got reset when I reset the whole structure of what my data is in that collection. So this got reset from my input table when I had to reset those. So let me go change that. So image is that, name is my name, screen text, screen text. Okay, woohoo. Got it working. All right, and then you could probably do let's do one more thing. Let's do like make it bold or something. So like this label. Right now we have the logic here changing the color. I'm just going to take kind of the same logic. I'm going to make this text bold. So I'm going to go into my font weight. I'm going to say if the input page is equal to this item, then I want it to be bold, otherwise semi-bold. And then I'm also going to make that text white, just because it looked a little odd being black text. Back over to the screens. And that yellow definitely looks horrible behind the white. No, it's not. I see, I can't even tell if it's semi-bold, if it's bold or semi-bold, because it's got that yellow going on. But you kind of get the idea, right? Yeah, definitely think through it first and build it like like I mentioned, like Craig's kind of re-emphasizing there, so that you don't have to try and shimmy things in later and then stuff breaks. So I have one that I did for a customer that's really cool with kind of this concept, except it's vertical down the screen on the left, and it's this big long form that they have to fill out. So each in this form has got, this is the one that I mentioned last week, where it's got like 8 pages, and it's not one form control, it's a separate form control on each screen that takes them through all the little sections of the form. So that's what I did for that, is I use this as it's going down the side and showing them what part of the form they're in. And I did write a blog post, wonderlaura.com, on forms across multiple screens on how to get that to function. I also didn't want them to use this navigation if they hadn't saved the form they were editing. So your form control actually has you can do form name dot, and it has a let's see, what's it called? Is unsaved. Form name dot unsaved, and it's a Boolean, yes, true or false. And so if I pass that as a parameter too into my component, so I set this this whole thing to be disabled, so they couldn't click on it if they had something unsaved on that form. So it's just another little fun bonus thing that because I wanted them to actually click the next button, which does a submit form, because if they just randomly go navigate somewhere else and they just change something, then it wouldn't save their changes. So it just disables the navigation. Any last questions? Let me go back. All right, that was fun. I will probably send out another poll for next week's topic, and I'm teaching the September Power Apps and Flow live class. It's in about a month. It's September 24th that week. It's 3 days of Power Apps and 2 days of Flow, but you could just sign up for one of them, and that's on iwmentor.com. And I did put a link to that in that newsletter that I sent out today. So, all right. Thanks everybody for coming and for voting. Have a good